everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Everyday Woman podcast. My name is Nyahangalia, and I am your host. Today, we will be talking about war. War. That's it. The effects of war, personal experience with war. As you may know by now, if you listen to the podcast, I love talking about my personal experiences because it gives me an opportunity to tell my story in my words. Also, the goal of the Everyday Woman podcast is to help at least one person has been my goal. So because of recent conversations, things in the news with Israel and Palestine, I thought about my personal experience with war and wanted to speak about it, clear up some misconceptions people might have. The biggest one for me has been the social media trend, because I feel like it has become a trend for some people to say, I stand with Israel, I stand with Palestine, the Palestinians or Palestine, without knowing without even knowing the backstory of what caused the whole war, which for them has been going on for about 75 years or more. So some people are just catching on to it now, but it's been an ongoing issue. I'm not coming from a political or feeling a place of loyalty to it. I'm coming from like I guess an emotional side of it, or personal experience, as in the side of people who are in it. Not the people on social media talking about who they, hashtagging, the people who are living it in Israel or in Palestine. So I'm from Sierra Leone, a nice, fun country in West Africa. This green, white, and blue are country colors. So because of this episode, I was like, oh, let me dress up in my colors. This is like one of our traditional outfits. And they call it ronco. Ronco is the name of it. It's weaved on like a, what do they call those things? It's hand woven. Anyway, so that's what this is. That's what I'm wearing. Different tribes have different things they wear. I think the Mende people tend to wear this. I know I do. I'm Mende, but I'm not sure. I think everybody wears it. Sierra Leone is pretty, we're just Sierra Leoneans. Like Christians, Muslims, we celebrate all the holidays. It's like, so it's pretty, I think we get along people get along pretty well. So back to what I was trying to talk about, the war. So I actually came to America as a refugee. I don't know if I've said this before on the podcast episode, but my immigration status to America was I came in, like I got stamped in as a refugee. Because when the war started, well, my mom was in America visiting, and then the war happened and she couldn't go back. So she ended up trying to get us over here. So our immigration status was we came as refugees. The war had ended by then, but because we were still in process of seeking asylum and stuff, so I actually ended up in America as a refugee. So let me say that first. Now, let me go back to the war in Sierra Leone. So our war lasted, hold on, I had to make some notes in my phone because I didn't want to, give the wrong information. So Sierra Leone had a civil war. So civil war would be war that originates from locals, as in pretty much y'all are fighting yourselves, which is dumb, but that's how our war started, okay? So the Sierra Leonean Civil War lasted from 1991 to 2022. So that's like 21 years of civil war. And that's before it was declared like it had ended, okay? So it started in 1991, 23rd of March, 1991. And it says it lasted 11 years. Am I counting wrong? Oh, I'm sorry. 11 years, not 21 years. 1991 to 2002. I think I was thinking 2020. Yeah, please. So it lasted 11 years. Casualties were literally about over 50,000 people died. Our war, really the trigger of it, okay, again, not doing the politics as much as I can, because that's a whole other segment that I'm not into. Um, but the trigger for it was, it started off with people just being dissatisfied with the government, with how things were being run, things were being operated. Shout out, first of all, to Sir Milton, my guy, okay? So he was the first Prime Minister of Sierra Leone, first Prime Minister of Sierra Leone, and he was my grandma's brother. I just want to give him credit because he did a good job. And then the people after him, eh, we're still observing to see what's happening there. But Sir Milton was the first Prime Minister of Sierra Leone. So one Sierra Leone, oh God, I'm about to start just. I'm trying to keep this as like less of my opinion as possible, but I can't help it. I might have to, give a little like roll my eye here and there. But so after Sierra Leone gained independence from the British, we were already there, but supposedly we gained independence. You know how that is. Our thoughts on the whole, your country existed, but you didn't belong to yourself. You had to belong to somebody else, and then now you belong to yourself. So listen. So when Sierra Leone gained independence, Sir Milton was the first prime minister. Like I said, he was doing a great job of governing and had the people at heart. Like he was the country was for the people. It was for the country and the people. One country, one people. There was an forced pseudo dictatorship where your voices can't be heard. So after him, okay, let me say this first, okay? So Sir Milton is my grandma, my dad's mom. That's her brother. So Sir Milton he actually delivered my dad. So my dad was born in Bunt Hospital, and when my grandma was, when she was pregnant, her brother, who's Sir Milton, he was a medical doctor before he became prime minister. So he actually delivered my dad. So my dad's name is Milton as well. So my dad's name is Milton Momo. My late dad, he's in heaven now, but yeah. So my dad's name is Milton Momo, and that's because he was named, well, my dad's name is Milton Albert Momo because he was named after Sir Milton, who was the first prime minister, and Sir Albert, who was the second prime minister. That's Sir Milton's brother. But also my dad's father's name was Albert. So I'm guessing my grandma just went with it and was like, well, his father's name is Albert, and then my other brother's name is Albert. So my dad's name was Milton Albert Momo. So Sierra Leone's first prime minister was Sir Milton. Second prime minister was Sir Albert Magai. That's Sir Milton's little brother. And then it was Shaka Stevens, and then J.S. Momo, Joseph Saidu Momo. People always would say, they would think my name, because my maiden name was Hannah Momo. So they were like, man, are you J.S. Momo's daughter? Nope, I'm not. But anyway, I don't even know why I said that. But when I kept going to school, they would be like, are you J.S. Momo's daughter? Because his wife, well, J.S. Momo's, I guess his legal wife before she died, her name was Hannah Momo as well when I was growing up in Sierra Leone. So every time we would like be traveling from the provinces or whatever at checkpoints, they'll be like, so what's your name? And I'll say Hannah Momo. They're like, are you J.S. Momo's daughter? No, I'm Sir Milton's granddaughter. Okay, let me get back to this. So I was trying to throw shade at subsequent leaders after Sir Milton, but some of the shade might be, I can't throw shade because, it doesn't matter. I'm just saying Sir Milton did a really good job. And then when he left power, gradually people started being upset, feeling like, people would say like things that, you write an article, you get thrown in jail. A journalist say something that I guess subsequent president or whoever doesn't want to hear, you're locked up. People were literally getting executed. People were going missing. So it just started becoming more of like a, it sounds more like I said, dictatorship, even though it was like a government. It wasn't a military government at the time. It was at the time before the war. So that was one of the reasons. I think the youth and people in the country were just feeling like, oh gosh. Now, the main reason why our war started was because of also diamonds, okay? Because they had places in Sierra Leone where there are a lot of diamonds. So like that's one of our main, well, if we used it for one of our it could be one of our valuable resources if it was being channeled in the right way. Sounds like it wasn't. I don't know. I don't think it is now. There was a lot of smuggling. People were like, okay, so the diamonds are being mined, but then the only people benefiting from the profits or whatever are the people in government. There was NDMC was called Diminco. My dad worked there. So there was NDMC so my dad was a mining engineer. Okay, I keep talking about my dad and throwing names out because like I'm so proud of like my people who came ahead of me. So I feel like I have like big shoes to fill, in a good way. Even my little podcast, I'm like, hey, I'm doing something. um, like outside of my job and my career. But yeah, so Diminco was a mining company they were partnering with another company. Um, the government of Sierra Leone was partnering with another company to like manage the diamonds and stuff. But like the profits from that were going to the president at the time. His name was Shiaka Stevens. But he's I think I went to school with one of his granddaughters. Yeah, I did. I don't think she watches my podcast, but if you do, sorry. Our parents and grandparents can do some shady stuff too, and it's okay if we just acknowledge it and move on. So he was pocketing stuff for himself, excuse me, and the people in his government. So people were getting, that wasn't good. Um, I mean, it's not good for the future of the country in general. I feel like there are people who are just like, oh, it is what it is, and I'm like, it doesn't have to be that way though. Like the way you want your country to grow or develop is by you as a leader. The people look up to you, like how you manage. You know what I mean? Like if you're the leader and you're more corrupt, everybody in your government is going to be corrupt. You know what I mean? Yeah, I'm not saying it's okay to steal and whatever, because Africa, we have a problem with corruption. I feel like everywhere has a problem with corruption because people be doing stuff in America too, but they'll hide it. Like some African countries, the bravity of it, the bravity, they're all in your face with it. So there's like a lack of accountability. There's like an ego to it. Like, what are you gonna do? So that's how it was at that time. So people became very disgruntled, and then with the diamonds, it really came about with the diamonds. So a group of younger people formed a coalition. It was called the RUF, Revolutionary United Front, United. Um, and they started a civil war, and like their goal was they partnered with Charles Taylor, who was the president of Liberia at the time. So Liberia had their war going on. I guess the lack of border control, and people started sneaking in, the rebels. So it just became Liberia had war. People were leaving Liberia to come to Sierra Leone to escape. Sierra Leone ended up having war. So it was just then we started leaving Sierra Leone to escape to Guinea. Guinea is like, oh, don't bring that here because, y'all don't let Liberia, you didn't close your borders. Then they brought the war to Sierra Leone. We don't want the war in Guinea, which, I get it. So they getting into Guinea, even that was hard, or even trying to get out of the country. And I'll talk more about that in a bit. So that's how the war started, right? So it started with them trying to take ownership of the diamond mines. So wherever the mines were, they're like in the north, and I mean the main places, Kono, Kenema. That's not north. That's eastern. Yeah, Eastern Sierra Leone area. So they wanted to claim those areas. Then they went to the south, like where after Diminco, where I said my dad worked. My dad started working in Sierra Rutile, which was a mining company where they mine rutile. They use it to make like the bodies of I think it's like one of the raw mineral products or whatever, raw ingredients or whatever to make. They said bodies of planes is what I've heard. I don't know. I didn't work there. My dad did. So rutile, bauxite. Those were the minerals those were actually valuable minerals as two as well. So it only like has a lot of good resources, and I feel like after the war, if that's how resources work, right? If somebody's in mining can clarify. I feel like that would give the resources time to settle or like to become more lucrative. So I feel like if there's just a structured, again, I'm sure there is now. I'm not sure. I don't live there anymore. I just visit. But if there's a structure to a well-managed structure, not just, oh, we have a minister of this. Like, like, what is the goal here? What are we doing? What's our 5-year plan? What's our 10-year plan? Not just having people come in and take over your resources. But yeah, back to my point. So then they took over like wherever they felt like there were resources. So it went from that to, so they'll kick out the citizens who live there. So if you live in, I don't know, let me say a town called, I don't know, Moyamba, let me just say Moyamba, or Bo or Bunt, wherever. I'm just naming random cities or towns in Sierra Leone. So if you live in that town and the rebels want things there, whatever those resources are, y'all better try to flee, because they're gonna come. And then it wasn't just, oh, now we're about the resources. They started raping young girls, raping women, amputating people because they were trying to make a point or something. Like, they would literally come, and this is stuff that I'll talk about my personal experience, but this is the general stuff first. So they'll literally come, right? Like, once they invade your town, they'll be like, oh, we're gonna chop, like, okay, because they used to, so they'll kidnap kids, like boys, young boys, drug them up, because eventually they needed more kids or more people to fight, because the soldiers, like the military, the country's military was trying to fight back, so they needed more manpower. So they would take little boys as young as like 5, 6. There was an incident that happened in our village. Oh God, I'll talk about that. But they'll put so they're like their shield. They'll put the kids at the front, and then the adults are in the back. So imagine y'all are trying to fight the rebels, and all you see are little kids. Like, they would literally encircle themselves with the kids. They'll drug up the children, like little kids. I'm like can barely talk, maybe 4 or 5, whatever. Sometimes mothers and their kids. They'll take the mothers and their little kids. Literally, they'll sometimes drug the kids up, give them guns that they can barely carry. And when some of these kids, maybe like the ones that are older, 10 or whatever, they would just go crazy because they're drugged up, they feel empowered. It was so bad. It was so bad. And then, okay, so this thing just triggers me. But anyway, I'm going to talk about it. So, like, I'm seriously triggered. And this is the other thing, like, when I'm saying I'm triggered, like, people who like Sierra Leoneans, even the ones living in America, people who lived through the war, I feel like we all just moved on, and then it's like, oh, the catchphrase is like, Sierra Leoneans are so resilient. It's not a bad thing, because some traumas you can't avoid. So if God gives you resilience, more kudos to you. But to use resilience as what I call it is a band-aid over a gunshot wound, because it's like, oh, traumatize them, they're resilient. Oh, just, don't pay attention to them. They need water. Oh, they're resilient. They need good health care. Oh, they're resilient. They need electricity. Oh, they're resilient. So it's like, not causing trauma, or not allowing people's just not providing things that could help people because you think like Sierra Leoneans are resilient. Because whatever happens is like, man, we don't live through all of these things with war, so whatever is thrown our way, we can handle. And that's not necessarily the point, because I feel like I'm gonna give an example. I'm gonna be all over the place because thoughts just keep coming in and out of my head. But when I was working in Virginia as a nurse at a hospital in Virginia when I moved to America. I had moved to America the war had ended way before that, but I had moved to America in 2006, yes, ish. I think like 5 years after that, I was at work at a hospital, and there was an earthquake there was a tremor during an earthquake at the hospital where I worked. I literally passed out. I was standing there, the tremor, and boom. Next thing I know, I open up my eyes, they're dousing me. Like, what's going on? What's going on? I'm like, what the hell? They're like, you literally just passed out. I thought it was, because during the war, they would drop bombs, and you would just hear, boom, like literally. You will feel it and hear it. And when that earthquake tremor happened, that's how it felt. That's how it felt like to me. And I think I just went back to that place of, I thought, oh God, this is it, like I'm in war again. Like, my mind just took me back there. And then it took me a while to realize, like, dang, Most Sierra Leoneans, we didn't really like go to any form I mean, now we're the therapy generation. We like to, we're in therapy, we're trying to heal, we're talking about our childhood traumas. Our parents didn't have to, they didn't, that wasn't a thing for them. Some of our parents are coming onto it now, but like in their generation, it's like you got tough skin, you got to deal with it. And then maybe that's why some of us were like, oh, because our generation's different now. Our kids are gonna have things they're gonna complain about us. Maybe they're gonna be like, we're too therapized. Is that a word, therapized? They're gonna be like, man, y'all are too, I don't know, is that thing is too healed? Because we might over heal, I don't know. So each generation has their thing. So I'm like, I don't know, our kids might be like, oh God, here go these parents. But what I'm trying to say is it took me a while to realize, like, dang, we didn't like, we just moved on. Like, I talked to my friends from Sierra Leone, I talked to people from Sierra Leone. Nobody's like, oh my gosh, the war and the thing it did to us, like the things we saw. Nobody, we all just are like moving on. And I'm like, we got like PTSD from that. Again, speaking of therapy, because when I went to therapy, the therapist was like, oh, tell me. And I'm talking about the war, like, oh, yeah, and she's like, hold on. There's a lot to unpack here, because I just dropped a bomb and kept going, dropped another bomb and kept going. And I know the poor lady was like, girl, I don't know how you're keeping it together. Because I'm laughing, but yeah, like even fireworks. I do not like fireworks. I do not. Or like guns. Like if I see a gun, even on a police officer, I start freaking out. Because my experience with guns, like the gun control thing, I'm all for gun control. And this is not even political. Because I've seen what guns in the hands of the wrong people did, that I can't even be like, oh yeah, let everybody get a gun. I am so traumatized. Like if I see a gun, like a police officer or like the military, like I just like I freeze because every time I saw a gun when I was younger, or when I not even just too younger, but growing up, it wasn't for self control. It was because somebody was being killed, like shot in front of you. Um, without going too deep, because I feel like once I started talking about it, I was like, dang, did I want to talk about this? And that's just me, my personal self, because it's like a little heavy now that I'm thinking about it. I'm talking more about it. But like when the war happened, right? So if a rebel pulls up in a wherever you're living, one of them would just be like, I don't know, just because they want to. Oh, I need 10 people right now. I'm gonna chop 10 arms or 10 legs, and they would literally, you would put your hand on a nothing, anything, whatever, like a stone or rock, whatever, and they have machetes, and they'll say, do you want long sleeves or short sleeves? And you have to choose. If you choose long sleeves, they chop your hand off right here. If you choose short sleeves, they chop it off right here. If you choose sleeveless, they literally give you choices. They chop it off right here and leave you to go. Some people bleed to death. Some people, they're able to tourniquet it and save their lives. And we had and still have, I guess, a lot of amputees in Sierra Leone who they have babies who are like, if you could look it up. So I just wish that people did more like research on things, more reading. I feel like a lot of us don't read enough. Not a lot of us, but a lot of people. A lot of people don't read enough. Even me, I started back reading more. I used to read voraciously, and my mind was just clearer then. My mind was a lot more, it wasn't fed by input from social media, because anybody could put anything on social media, like I could put this on social media and it's there. But I'm just saying, like, to do your own research for yourself. That's why I was saying with the whole Israel and conflict with the Palestinians, it like, what does, I stand with Israel, because whether you're doing it for religious reasons or whether you think you have to choose Israel because you're a Christian, or I stand with the Palestinians because you're like, everybody on my friend list is saying that, or everybody thinks we're supposed to support Israel. I'm not supporting Israel. Or like, I saw, they said people are being bombed, but do you even know what happened? Like, how can you help? Like, how can you actually help? Like, how can you be of help? Can you research organizations to donate to, like, their children being killed? Not anyone versus anyone, but like obviously Israel has more resources, so like if they retaliate, it's like, there's more of a, but the Hamas, and Hamas is not even just the country. There are people in, like, okay, so the children in the Palestinian children are all like, oh, y'all are dunzo, just because, you know what I mean? Like, people who don't even have anything personally to do with it are suffering, or children are being killed. Um, People in Israel are being attacked. So like both sides, it's like there are victims on both sides there. But there's I don't see, maybe if somebody does, kind of let me know. But I don't see what the benefit is of choosing a side and trolling people on social media. Because the other thing people do is like, oh, God forbid you're a celebrity and you post that your child is smiling. Oh, your child is smiling. Are the Palestinian children smiling? Oh, oh, you support Palestine. You're gonna get canceled. Like, bro, just trolling. Without even knowing the realities of war. Um, Babies, in Sierra Leone, a pregnant woman, right? Like 8 months pregnant, 9 months pregnant, or whatever. So literally, they'll pull you out. Like people start hiding pregnant women. If they see you pregnant, oh, there's a pregnant woman. Bring her out. Bring her out. Bring her out. Okay, I'm gonna bet you, I don't know, $500 or whatever, 500,000 leones or whatever. It's a boy. The other one's gonna say, nah, I think it's a girl. Okay, what you betting? Okay, fine. Put the bet on the table. Slit the woman's belly open with a machete. So literally kill her, because who's gonna survive like a nasty ass machete? I mean, I'm not saying it's supposed to be a surgical procedure because the act of it is cruel enough, but I'm just saying whatever machete they've been chopping people with, slit her open, pull it out. Is it a boy? Is it a girl? Like that's how inhumane it was for a bet. Does the baby survive? Don't know. Like that was it. That's the bet. Is it a boy? Is it a girl? Oh, it's a boy. It's a girl. Move on. Like that's how inhumane, how animalistic, how evil like war can be when you're in it. Okay, I think the lighting might be better. So please bear with me. Don't focus on the lighting. You know how people go to church and they can't really sing and they're like, don't listen to my voice, listen to the words that I'm saying. So don't pay attention to my lighting. Not right now. I'm working on upping my equipment game. I actually have the equipment. I just need to figure out somewhere to set it up permanently, or where I don't have to keep taking it down, and just have a more like a studio like setup. But the place I record at right now, it's a studio office situation, playroom because I got a baby, so it's kind of like ooh. So um, don't pay attention to the lighting. Pay attention to the words. So anyway, so we were displaced a few times. The first time we went to live with my grandma in the village because where we were living, the rebels came there, right? When we went to the village, we were there for like I think like a few months, and then the rebels were headed that way as well. So then my dad, because we had girls, me, my sister, and my cousins, he was like, okay, they're raping girls, they're taking them with them, young girls. The younger you are, the better. Ugh. To be the rebels, to be their wives. They'll have multiple wives. Some families, literally, there were some families who I don't think anyone was willingly giving up their daughter, but if your daughter became, I don't know, a rebel wife or whatever, it garnered you some type of protection. People do a lot of things when they don't have much control. Okay, so let me just say that the point of this is not about trying to throw shade out. Well, I did throw shade politically, but the point of it is not to try to say anybody did something the right or the wrong way. But so my dad was like, okay, so take the girls to the city. So my mom took us to the city. We stayed with my aunt, Auntie Avril, until our parents came. Until our parents were able to leave, because then my mom had to go back and try to pack up to leave again. So we got displaced a few times because we had to move. And then there's also being a refugee, right? So being a refugee is when you have to leave your country to go live in another country. We did that twice. We had times, so during the war, there are times when things will be better. There are times when things will you think it's peaceful, and then something else happens. So like we had a coup like in May 2007. No, May 1997. And then there was an invasion in January 6th of 2000 and was it 2001? 2002. So there were like multiple times where there were major invasions or major attacks or things like that, when you would literally have to either leave the country if you could, or leave where you were living at to go somewhere else. So So at one time I lived in the Gambia. I lived in the Gambia for over a year. And then the other time I was in Guinea. So those are two neighboring countries to Sierra Leone. Um, Me personally, this is like whenever the things would happen, right? Like one time the rebels, when we were in the city, they came to the city and they told everybody, like, everybody come out your house. So like they would burn your houses, like they would literally just light up houses. Like after a while, it wasn't even, there wasn't a purpose to it. Like before, you're like, okay, well, it started off because of the diamonds. After a while, it just became cruel, it just became evil, because people were like coked up, drugged up, shot up with drugs, just doing whatever commanders told them to do. Neighbors would lie on, like literally, if you got in a fight with a neighbor, they would literally say, "Oh, this person supports the whatever, whatever, their government informant." You literally would lose your life right there. Like people, they would literally tell people, please don't even go around making enemies, because literally, or if they know, I don't know, maybe their cousin joined the rebels, then they would be like, oh, you mess with me, just wait, my cousin's gonna come. Their cousin comes, they say something stupid about you that you didn't even do or say, and literally you just lose your life right there. So after a while, I was like, don't even beef with people, just kind of try to keep your peace, try to stay out of it, because the bodies laying on the side of the street. So one time when they came, they were like, everybody come outside, and they just lined us all up. Everybody just sat on the side, on the road, like in the middle of the road. Per household, we just sat on the street, like just sat on the street, like animals, I guess. So we were all just sitting on the street, and I was just like, this was like 86, 86. I think I was like 13 at the time. And then I just kept thinking, oh, I'm gonna die at 13. I was just so scared. And then I started praying. I said, God, please take me to heaven. Please don't let me die. Um, like I was just like crying, um, crying on the inside, because also the dramatics and begging sometimes triggers them. And then like I remember at that age, my biggest I actually felt like, because my dad came, like everybody's outside, right? So you think your dad is your protector. Like they literally, I saw my dad, like to think your dad sitting on the like on the streets with you, like my dad's sitting there too. And like I was like, I couldn't stand to look at my dad, because I could see that my dad was like, he looks so helpless, as in helpless for his kids. Like, dang, I'm their dad, I'm supposed to protect them, and I can't. And it wasn't just him, most of the other parents, some parents were like holding their kids, but like my dad had this look like a, I don't know if like growing up, if people ever see like your parents trying to be tough, like when you see your parent at their lowest, it's hard, like as a kid it's hard sometimes to see your dad at their lowest. I remember my dad just had this look of like he was trying to act like he wasn't scared, you know what I mean? And like trying to smile to us, to be like, it's okay, and I could tell it wasn't okay. Like he wasn't okay. Well, like what could he do? They could literally just shoot him, and what is he gonna do? He had like some encounters with the rebels where one time they said something was gonna happen, and like he was trying to speak up, and they said, "Sir, we would literally strip you down and like beat you," or something like that. Like they said something to him that like I was a kid and I wanted to say something, and like my God, like anyway, it didn't happen. Let me just say that. But I guess I'm proud of my dad. I'm proud of you. But it's just like the war, and I'm just thinking of the parents who don't, you can't even save your children. You can't, because what can you do? You're gonna die if you try to like speak up or like fight the rebels or say something to like the literally. So the parents who watch their children taken away from them, kidnapped, like literally, it's like, and you have other children, what can you do? It's a hard situation. um like we had coverage, I think, like on CNN and stuff, of our stuff, obviously not as much as the the current one, but again, there's political things to that as well, whether it's resources, whether it's whatever it is, it's biblical prophecies, there's more to that, the Israel and Palestine. I keep hesitating because I'm trying to say because I'm thinking Palestinians, but the country is Palestine. So there's more to everything. But as a human and as somebody living the experience, I feel like those are the stories that don't get told enough. In our case though, like we have, I mean, I know of two child soldiers who have written books. One of them was really, really popular. The other one is more recent. So like A Long Way Gone by Ishmael Bia, and I'll have Tim do it because Tim's my editor. I'll have Tim write it on there. And then more recently is From a Child Soldier to a Humanitarian by Ishmael Charles. So those are two books. Like if you're interested in getting the perspective of somebody from the other end who wasn't voluntarily put in that situation. Those are two books that you can read. Um, there was a lot of rape, a lot of rape. There were people who got pregnant as a result of that rape who couldn't, you don't even have, like, where are you going to go? What are you going to do? Like, you're stuck. Like, what are you going to do? Just like the people in, like, the Gaza Strip where they're like, well, y'all got to leave. But where are you going to leave? Where are you going to go? Like, when we were in the war, the borders were closed. So you couldn't leave, even if you wanted to leave. So it's like, okay. At one point, I remember American citizens, because I had a friend who, like, we went to school together, and she was born here. So, like, because people be listening to America, so the American government requested for their citizens to be evacuated, and they sent a ship. And I don't think the ship came. I don't think the people were on the ship to, like, come to America. I think the ship just took them from Sierra Leone to maybe Guinea, or maybe somewhere where they could fly out of. But if you were on the ship, let me know how they did it. But I remember one of our friends, she was born in America, and like the ship came and she had to leave, and we're like, girl, can't you take us with you? We were like teenagers, man. We were so devastated because imagine somebody leaving when we couldn't even leave, even on foot. People couldn't leave. Like, people tried to leave by boat. Boats were getting capsized because the boats were overloaded, so the boats were like, whew. People are trying to leave by road. If they see you or they catch you, they're killing you. Oh, where are you trying to go? Oh, you think you're better than us? Oh, flights were grounded. So there were no flights coming in or out at all because they would shoot at it. They would literally take a plane down. There was this plane, they used to call it Alpha Jets. Whew, it was like a fighter jet. Every time that jet, okay, so we had, later on, they had ECOMOG. It was like a ECOWAS military group that came in to help. They were trying to help the government to fight, the rebels and stuff. And then they had UNAMSIL, that's the United Nations missions in Sierra Leone. That was like a military group with the United Nations as well. So they had fighter jets that would come by, and I don't know if it was to terrorize or to, like, intimidate the rebels. Well, not that, because they would drop bombs too, though. Like, they would drop bombs in areas. I guess they had surveillance and stuff. But that's the other thing. Listen, if you're dropping bombs, they're going to be civilian casualties, right? So they would drop bombs. If the Alpha Jet was coming by, Lord, pray. Everybody's praying, because please let them not drop it on us. Let them not drop it. You know what I mean? But the rebels had some camps in the bushes, I guess, or in the forests or jungles or whatever, where they would drop bombs. So whenever the Alpha Jets were coming by, they'll see the jets. Oh, they were so scared of that Alpha Jet. It was like, oh, we all knew Alpha Jet. That's what we called it. I don't even know why we called it that. So when it's coming by, they pull everybody outside. Everybody goes outside because now we're, human shield. So, like, it's like if the jet sees people lying on the street, then, like, they're not gonna just bomb people or, intentionally. So there was that. I talked about the PTSD that I personally experienced, moving, changing places. The fact that we all just kind of were like, oh, it is what it is, like it's supposed to be normal. And when I talk about, like, oh, I lived through war, people kind of, like, especially here in America, they kind of give me that look like, what? I was like, yeah, or I'll say I came as a refugee, and I stopped saying that because it was like, I started garnering, like, people be like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And I didn't think it was like a thing to, they'll be like, oh my gosh, I can only imagine, like, the portrayal of it wasn't what I was going for. I would just drop it in, just keep moving in the sentence, and they're like, hold on, what? You are refugee? Oh my gosh.
And then they want to ask questions, and I don't think mentally I was ready to like answer, because then it just took me to a whole other place that I thought I closed off. So yeah, so then today I guess I just decided to talk about it, because I'm just like, for somebody who I say we because I just talk about Sierra Leoneans, like, we lived through war and we just kept it going, like kept moving, kept things moving, like, oh. So each time there was one disaster, it was like, oh, here comes another one. So when like COVID happened here, I was kind of like, oh gosh, and even the world, like with COVID and stuff, like I feel like the whole world needs therapy. For real, like I feel like the whole world needs like even if it's not therapy, physical, like talk therapy, just needs something, some healing. That's the word, not just therapy. I feel like the whole world needs to heal, because for the past, what, since 2020, this is 2024. At first they were like, excuse me, oh my gosh, excuse me. At first we were like, oh, the pandemic was 2020. I feel like the pandemic is still pandemicking, because there's still leftover, even the healthcare, the infrastructure is still broken, like healthcare is overwhelmed, people are still getting sick. When it was political, they were covering it more, but it's like, for us who work in healthcare, we know it's still an ongoing thing. Sometimes people are getting sick, we don't even know what it is. Like literally, it's like you have, I don't know what it is. They swab you for everything, and it's not flu, it's not COVID, but you're sicker than maybe somebody who has flu or COVID. There's just so many residual things going on that I'm like, the whole world needs healing. Um, and my point of this is just, I feel like the coverage of the war has been like, you're either here or there, and like the humanitarianism is being lost in it, or the humanity of it, because there are people, there are children being bombed, children being killed, people being attacked. Like literally, there are clips of like bombs being dropped, and people are celebrating that bombs are being dropped on people. My point is, it's just like some stupid ass group of people who are causing problems or doing things that are affecting, whether it's their own citizens or another country. And now there's a I don't know, like an expectation that you have to be either or over here, and forgetting like the humanity of it. So it took me a while to like talk about it, because I'm like, I'm not even gonna address it. But it's happening, and some people like it triggers like some things in some people. So some people don't even address it. Like I don't know if I've talked about it with anybody from Sierra Leone. Now I'm thinking about it, because I'm like, I feel like we've been through so much. We're just like, whew, listen, um, like we're dealing with our stuff, or like, we survived ours, they'll be fine, because that could also be a thing. Like when people have gone through traumas, they tend to dismiss other people's traumas, or they tend to like maximize theirs, and or, like if I don't know, like let me say, God forbid, but like let me say, well, I've been through a divorce, so there you go. So like if when I went through my divorce, right, and then somebody else goes through a divorce, and instead of like empathizing or sympathizing, like, oh my gosh, that is so, yeah, divorce, like, they'll be fine. We've all been through it. We tend to do that. Like if we've been through traumas, we tend to like, if somebody else goes through, it's like, welcome to the club, versus like, oh, I've been through this, so I know how much it sucks. I know how much it. And sometimes when people been through it, they're actually happy when other people go through it, because then they're like, oh well, I'm not the only one who's been divorced, and that's not the right way to go about it. So I just hope that as humans, as people, we can see other people's trials, see more, and like, okay, here's the lessons I'm getting from this. Number one, I feel like um, outside of the politics or religion, because people can be blinded by religion. I'm not talking about spirituality, because I know like the God that I serve, I don't think he's up there celebrating because bombs are being dropped in Israel or bombs are being dropped in Hamas. Biblically, the people who are going from it from a religious perspective are like, oh, Israel's God's chosen people. That's what the Bible says, right? But that's the same. This is God as well, who, when the Israelites did wrong, he was upset at them and was like, oh no, with the Jews and the Gentiles, that's how it's like, okay, now I'm just extending my grace to everybody, because my chosen people disappointed me. If you go in the biblical side of things, right? So then there are people who are fixated on, oh, yeah, kill the Palestinians because Israel is God's chosen people. And it's kind of like, bro, no, that's not. Talk to God. I'll tell you that's not how he rolls. Because I be talking to him. He doesn't roll like that. Okay? The God we serve, the God you pray to, he's not up there celebrating because bombs are being dropped on one person or the other. Because guess what? Those same people, he made everybody. If you're staying in the book, God made everybody, right? So just like Paul was Saul was killing people, then he became a apostle Paul. God loved him. Yeah. So the God we serve, he's not a God of celebrating bombs being dropped on one country versus the other. That's not the God we serve, number one. So I feel like don't let religion or politics blind you and make you think you have to be celebrating the demise of one people over the other. Pray for peace. That's what God will want, number one. Because this isn't new. This has been happening before most of us were even born. So you tweeting that you're for or against one person doesn't solve the problem because it's been, yeah, it's above you. It might never even be ever be solved. Who knows? Number two, um I think we shouldn't lose our humanity. Don't make us lose our humanity. You know what I mean? Like, there are children being killed, there are people being hurt. um think of ways you can help. Research ways you can help. Look up what you could do. If you can't pray, sometimes if you can't just be quiet, sometimes being quiet actually is silence is actually golden, believe it or not. Because not every you don't have to jump on every bandwagon because you see everybody jumping on it. And the third one I would say, because when my guests come, I normally say, what's three pieces of advice you would give? The third one I would say is for people to do more research and reading. Not even if it's not just reading. Like, before you just spit out non-facts, or before you just say, oh, this is it, or everybody is doing this, let me do it, let me say it. Like, look it up, like, read up on it. You might actually start going down a hole that you're like, oh, this is a nice rabbit hole. So yeah, try to learn for yourself. Like, we're all adults now. Learn for yourself so you can tell your kids the stories of how things are or how things were. But yeah, I think that's all I'm gonna do with my war conversation. And that's because as I started talking about it, I started realizing that I still have a lot of triggers. And this is like over like what, and if it ended in 2020 2002, this is like over 20 years ago, and I'm still like talking about it is triggering. But I don't think I've talked about it in like a healing perspective. That's the thing. So I think that's I'm gonna stop there, and I'll do the rest of my I'll do the rest of my conversation in a more holistic environment, as in whether it's a therapy session or whether it's prayer. But yeah, I was a little bit triggered there, a little, just talking about that stuff, because that's not normal. And I think I just, because I'm a parent now, I'm like, ooh, what would I do if my kids were in that situation? Like, what can I do? What can you really do? You know. So my prayer is that there's peace. My prayer is that we're nice to each other. We're kind to each other. Not just nice, because people can be nice and not kind, right? Yeah, because nice is at face value. Kind is from the heart. So I think that we're kind to each other, and we got this one life, and make the best out of it, until we go to where God, got for us planned. But until then, let's make God proud. I pray we make Him proud. And thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Everyday Woman podcast. God bless you. Mwah!